that it stands. So with that, I want to thank everyone here, and I want to thank you, and I guess allow my colleague to say a few words. Rosie Mendez, representing District 2 in Manhattan, and here we are again. The government from time to time has used legal means to quash our First Amendment rights. This is nothing more, these subpoenas are nothing more than to have a chilling effect on our freedom of association, our freedom of free speech, our First Amendment rights, and we are going to stand together to quash these subpoenas. Today, it's us, tomorrow, it's going to be you. We need to stop it now. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes.
Tish James.
Thank you. Melissa Mark-Viverito and Rosie Mendez, we consider ourselves a triangle. We stand together on every progressive issue in the city of New York. We are sisters in the spirit. And whenever there's a struggle, whether it's in the Latino community or the African American community, you will find all three of us. And I stand here today because I recognize that the FBI has intimidated, has investigated, and has spied upon members of the African American community. And I also recognize that they continue to do it with my Latino brothers and sisters. And they continue to do it because, again, it's all about repression. It's all about trying to violate the First Amendment. And so I stand with my sisters here today to say no to this and to say that we will stand up each and every time for the freedom of those who want to speak out on behalf of the rights of others. And so the only Latino words that I know are si se puede. And so with that, I say si se puede.
Si se puede. Si se puede. Si se puede. Si se puede.
Okay, the next person that I want to bring forward so you can listen to her is Tania Frontera's mother, who came all the way from Puerto Rico yesterday to address you. Her name is Tania.
Bienvenida.
Buenas tardes. Yo vengo en representación de todas las amistades de Tania en Puerto Rico, de la comunidad de donde ella se crió, de todos sus familiares. Estoy aquí en apoyo a cualquier decisión que tome mi hija con respecto a este asunto y cualquier otra situación que se pueda presentar en este caso. Muy agradecida por todo el apoyo que le han brindado y buenas tardes.
I will translate what she said for the purposes of the media. Tania Walsh, the mom, she came from San Juan, Puerto Rico, and she comes with a message from the people from the town where Tania was raised, the people where she lived and grew up. They all come and they send her a message that they're in solidarity with her, that they stand behind her and her political position, and she is very, very happy and proud with the support that she has been afforded here in New York City, and she's very grateful and thankful.
Right.
Thank you. The next person who's going to address is Daniel Myers, who's the national president of the National Lawyers Guild. Both lawyers, Susan Tipograph and Marty Stoller, who are representing Tania and Chris, are members of the National Lawyers Guild. They couldn't be here with us today because they're in court in other cases, but here we have the president of the nationwide National Lawyers Guild.
Whoa!
New York City is a nation, but I'm not the president of the National Lawyers Guild. I'm the president of the New York City chapter.
Right.
The National Lawyers Guild has always been involved in fighting government abuse and government oppression. Particularly has been supportive of the struggle in Puerto Rico for independence and self-determination. In fact, I, many years ago, represented one of your colleagues who refused induction in the United States military on the grounds that he, as a Puerto Rican, was not subject to the American draft. That citizenship was imposed upon him. We have to evaluate what's going on in New York and what is also going on in Puerto Rico and perhaps other places within the United States as a further effort by the United States government to continue its colonialization and oppression of Puerto Ricans and Puerto Rican people. And that we cannot look at the grand jury that sits in Brooklyn as anything other than a tool of the FBI and the U.S. government that has an agenda. And that agenda, with regard to what today's press conference is about, is to quash resistance and the spirit of resistance of Puerto Ricans in the United States and in Puerto Rico. Particularly, they're targeting, which is an example of, in which some 30 years ago, it was the youth, the Puerto Rican youth, that brought in this city and in Puerto Rico a resurgent Indies movement. It too was attempted to be squashed. And in that program, known as the COINTELPRO, Puerto Rican militant struggle was targeted. So we have to always look at history, and this is a continuation of the history that many believe began in 1898, when Spain ceded Puerto Rico to the United States. But Puerto Rican people, as people everywhere who fight for self-determination, will continue that struggle, and that we must support those who are legitimizing that struggle. And our organization of lawyers and legal workers represents the people presently who have been subpoenaed before the grand jury in Brooklyn.
Thank you.
The next person who would address you is going to be Panama Alba from the National Congress for Puerto Rican Rights.
I'm going to be very brief and just say that we're here to add our voice to those that demand that this grand jury, the subpoenas be quashed, that the grand jury be put to an end, because we recognize that the grand jury is being used as a tool of repression against a sector of the Puerto Rican population who seeks independence from the United States. It comes at a very particular time. It comes at a time when the FBI is the one that should be being held accountable for the murder of Humberto Ojeda Rios. That in Puerto Rico the investigation is ongoing, and they continue to refuse to cooperate with the local authorities in Puerto Rico. They outright murdered el comandante of the Macheteros, and they have not been held accountable for that. It comes at a time when the United Nations has taken the case of Puerto Rico and conceivably can be part of the agenda of the General Assembly next year. And at that moment in history is when they once again have chosen to institute a grand jury that seeks to gather information